I'm just saying. All right, and talking about going to prison and bad people doing things, and white and particularly women, you would have heard about, of course, Green MP Julie Anne Genter, or Genta. I'll tell you where she's gone, by the way. Actually, I'll bring our next guest in the conversation before I have discussed this. And Wellington City Councillor Tony Randle joins us now, as he does every Tuesday. Tony, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Where's Julie Anne Genter gone? Here's a quiz for you, pop quiz.
I don't know. I assume I think the phrase has gone to ground.
No, I'll tell you where she's gone, Tony. She's just flown out this morning to the Chatham Islands. And she's going there for the next Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And do you know why she's gone to the Chatham Islands?
No, please tell me.
It's in her constituency of Rongotai.
Of course, it is
Yes.
too.
Yes, I mean, how bizarre that the Chatham Islands is in the Rongotai constituency. That makes perfect sense. But obviously, the other thing I was going to say, but she's not going to Parliament this week. She's going. And now we know of a third incident, I think, of her acting inappropriately or in a threatening or bullying manner with Wellington retailers has attacked. Listen, one of the things, and can I just ask you as a councillor, Tony, of the Wellington City Council, Julie Anne Genter's blow-up seems to be over discussions, disputes, debates that she's having with people over Wellington Cycleways. Why has that turned into such a litmus test of anger at the moment?
Oh, well, I mean, that goes towards the green agenda. I mean, cycleways are one of the touchstones, along with light rail and climate change, of things that are top priority for every city, and must be done quickly. Right.
So you've got a light rail concept. Oh, well, you do have light rail in Wellington, don't you? I seem to remember.
No, we've got a really lovely cable car that goes up the road. We've got some trains. Certainly, there's trains that disappear off to the other cities, and that's that they move quite a lot of people. That's pretty important as well. But you're coming back to cycleways. I mean, the cycleway news in Wellington today is the council announcing that it's put the next round, or the next cycleway to be done has been put on hold up Brooklyn Road, and you're talking about it being sort of crammed down on the community. I just got a couple of facts to sort of get in the road. So they pulled this funding on the cycleway. So this place where the cycleway is has 164 cyclists a day. And you think, okay, but it has, and they're narrowing the road and putting raised pedestrians. They wanted to put raised pedestrian crossings and this sort of thing. This road has 12 to 16,000 vehicles a day, including buses. So you're looking at 20,000 people going up and down that road, but of course the 164 cyclists are the priority.
Yes, that sounds odd, doesn't it? Is the theory being, if you build it, they will come?
Yes, it is. And they've built, the island-based cycleway has been in place for, over 5 years. They've had a number of other cycleways, being added, but we're still waiting for them to arrive. I mean, a recent review of one of the other cycleways said that, a year or so after it was put in place, there's 7% more cyclists. So, they're not turning up. I mean, even the busiest cycleway in the whole of Wellington, which is the cycleway along Thornton Quay, still only manages to get sort of counts of 400, maybe 500 cyclists a day. But that's less than what is travelled in cars on one traffic lane, less than half of that at peak time.
Can I ask the obvious question here, Tony, of you? Somebody who, you're right in Wellington, you know this. I don't live in a place. But whenever I go to Wellington, I see bugger all cyclists, and that might be a reason for that. It might be unsafe. There might be a lot of cars on the road. The weather's inclement, a whole series of things. But why do people think that cycling is a good idea? And I'm a cyclist, just so you know. But why are they trying to have cycleways when so few people use them? What's the philosophy here? What's the aim, the end point of constructing them?
I think the straightforward thing is that cyclists do need to have a safe way and straightforward way to cycle into town and out of town and around. But I think the more hidden agenda is that they just don't like cars, and so there's nothing better than converting a traffic lane to a cycleway, even if there's no one on there.
Why would I travel on a cycle in Wellington? I mean, I'd have to be crazy. I'll be honest with you. As I said, I'm a cyclist. I would never think of cycling in Wellington. It's too effing dangerous. And the weather's bad, and you've got a lot of wind as well, which makes it even. And people open car doors, and you go into it. Ask Philip Burton. It's just not a cycle-friendly city. And putting in cycle lanes, what do they think, that half of Wellington will suddenly get out of their cars onto a cycle? Is that the theory here?
Yeah, and they are. They do. I mean, they go and they say, look at Copenhagen. 37% of people cycle in Copenhagen to work. But of course, Copenhagen is a highly dense, well-established city where it's incredibly flat. But they come along and they cite these sort of figures to say it's going to work here, and the answer has to be, well, we've actually had cycleways in for a while. Have they worked? I mean, the amazing thing about all of these projects, and they've scuppered this project thanks to the government pulling the 90% funding for cycleways. So they've actually scuppered this, but the numbers of cyclists you're talking about are really in the tens and hundreds. Yes, you've got thousands of people, even along Island Bay. For every cyclist that travels along there, there's about 5 people who are on the bus, not even counting the cars. You're right that I think it's been overdone, and it really just goes to show, it's just an example of what happens when an organisation like a council gets captured by a group of people with an agenda. And certainly the cycling lobby has had hundreds of millions of dollars, funneled their way, and continues to do so.
The other thing I notice about Wellington, and this is to do with the cycleways again, and forgive me, but I do notice it when I come there, is the lack of school students who cycle. You see that, that I live in a place, I live in obviously, as you know, a small town in the middle of Otago, which is flat, as you know, Tony, and kids cycle to school every day. And it's beautiful too. Yeah, and kids cycle to school every day. They do that. And the weather's, it also doesn't rain a lot where you are. And it's not very windy. It's not very windy, and Wellington is literally the windiest, place in the whole country. Yeah. We've got a whole set of wind farms along our coastline, because it is that windy. And so you're absolutely right. I mean, on a good day, it's an amazing city to even including cycling around. But there's plenty of time. One of the things I see, because I'm a big fan of public transport, on the rainy days, the buses are packed. And I think it's because the cyclists decide, I can't be bothered, putting on my wet weather gear, sloshing through, get into work, soaking wet, having to come home. The same that going home, of course, is all uphill most of the time. And so they get on the bus, and so the buses get overloaded on the wet days, and there's no one in the cycleway. Interesting though, we've all travelled. We've travelled to places like Copenhagen. Obviously, Amsterdam would be the best example in terms of cycles. And absolutely, I think in Amsterdam the cycle has priority, doesn't it? Actually, over anything else. They certainly cycle like they do. But those are specific cultures that have built themselves around the bicycle. New Zealand doesn't have that cycle culture, does it?
No, I think that it doesn't, and we are still a group of people who like the cars, much to the chagrin of a lot of Green Party councillors, sort of thing. They're very, very dedicated against the cars, and as I say, I think a lot of the cycleway movement is in reality not really about getting cycling. It's about getting rid of parking and, in a sense, forcing people. We're going to take away that choice on the